Sometimes we forget why we're here. It's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're fading, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians or choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they wanna do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes this day and age is making me feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rapping. I wanna share my emotion because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battle scars are impressions of everything that it is.
Don't look like they're fading, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're fading, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Now if I had a voice that reached 100 million people, I'd tell them there's a reason that we're all created equal. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm given. Won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battle scars on my church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers, these battle scars on my church.
Don't look like they're fading, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're fading, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
That's what she said.
Can you hear me now? That is, can you hear me now? This is, hopefully you can hear me now. Or is it really low sound? I think I fixed it. Let's see if this, yep, I had my soundboard with the wrong slider up because I'm an idiot. And what I was telling y'all before is I was just giving you a little tour of the studio. But I have the two mics here for me and Mike. I had the mics for Mike. And yeah, so there's the board. And I had the sound thing on the wrong thing. This is the one I needed it on, not that one. God, that's a terrible color cast. that blue. It's a cheap-ass camera I have up there. But anyway, how are you guys doing? These are the types of shows I'm going to be doing regularly. Yeah, it's just a little tiny soundboard. Oh, I wanted to get comments up. Hold on. I'm not used to doing this show. I was doing Cult of R earlier, but let me find where I have my scenes. 1 second. Any of you who use Ecamm, you know the things I'm searching for. I don't know any of the shortcuts. That's my problem. No, it's not scenes. I want overlays. Overlays. Where are you? There you are. Okay. I gotta scoot a little this way. Move. Oh, God, that arm is bad. Ugh. Okay, now we're good. Now we're good. I got my grifting along the bottom. We got the chat screen up. I've got my pink flame. I got my Mises thing. Oh, but you know, what I hid, I'm going to have to move this over. Look, I tried to have all kinds of cool staging. Let us pray. I do have my Ron Paul candle. Oh, you can't see it over here either. Just know that Ron Paul is over here, just watching you. Ron Paul is watching. I do have. Sorry, Chuck. I'm so pathetic. I do have a Stream Deck. The only thing I use my Stream Deck for is sound effects, and I got a new one.
Unauthorized recording.
That's gonna be my new favorite. I only use my Stream Deck for.
Objection, speculative.
I have it set up for other things. I just suck at it, Chuck. I really do. Okay, you're right, though. I need to just start using my Stream Deck for overlays and all of that. Okay, everyone. So I know y'all have been waiting for this show, and I know, let me look, yeah, with the amount of viewers that are on, which I'm looking at my Stream Deck for, I know there's some people in here who are sitting here with popcorn because they're waiting for their predictions to come true. Now, what the predictions have been is that I'm just a completely unstable, loose cannon that the Mises people are going to regret endorsing me because I'm going to get into my show and just light everybody on fire with my Ron Paul candle. No, I'm not. As I told you guys before, when I started rerunning, I had a heart-to-heart with Angela because Angela is a smart cookie. And Angela was like, we didn't know each other very well. We know each other really well now. But in the beginning, we didn't know each other that well. We just knew each other as both strong female voices for liberty. And, she had a heart-to-heart with me and is like, if we bring you on board as, endorsed, are you just going to be trouble? Basically, are you just, do you thrive on drama and you need to just completely hate the LNC? And I'll tell you what I said to her, and I am good to my word, is don't be corrupt and you have absolutely nothing to worry about. People forget that I was on the LNC for years before last year. They act like I just appeared last year. I think I'm insane now when I think about this, but I was first elected in 2016. Most people don't realize that. This is my 6th year on the LNC. Okay? Now, while I've always been a firebrand, that's just my personality. There hasn't been anything like there was last year. And what happened last year is because they were corrupt. Let's just leave it at that. We don't need to, not everybody, but let's just leave it at that. So, no, if you've come to this show expecting me, again, to light everybody on fire with my Ron Paul candle, that's not going to happen. What's going to happen is the type of shows I used to have before New Hampshire happened. And that is, we're going to discuss party business. I'm going to give you my opinions. I'm going to do my best to represent the opinions of other people because I believe that everyone on the LNC is acting in good faith. And if any other LNC members are in the audience and you want to come on, like if I bring up something that you have something you want to say, I'll shoot you a link. You can come on. We can discuss it like things used to be. And right now, there really isn't even anything terribly controversial, but there will be over this term things that people disagree on. And that's okay. That used to happen all the time, and people didn't light each other on fire. And that's what I'm hoping. So any of you who are in the viewing audience who are expecting something super dramatic, you might as well just go, because that's not going to happen. But if you're interested just in learning, if you have questions that you want to ask me, complaints, whatever you might have in chat, I will try to answer them the best I can. I want to get back to just educating people on what's going on. That's it. And I'm not always going to agree with the rest of my colleagues. In fact, we already had a vote in which it was 10-3, and guess what side I was on? I was on the side of the 3. I'm used to it. I don't get all, ass mad over that. You win some votes, you lose some votes. That's the nature of the process we've all agreed to. So we're going to go over the first 2 weeks. Hello, Dave Benner, Dave Davis, everybody, how are you doing? I really want to get y'all's feedback and discuss some of what's going on. Now, when I'm talking about fellow LNC members and interactions and things that are public, I am going to mention names, quite obviously, because it's all in the public list, and you will know who I'm talking about. But if I end up talking about people outside the LNC, maybe disappointing behavior or just things that are happening outside, I'm probably not going to mention names unless it's so well known that it's stupid not to. Okay? I'm just not. And if that's also what people are looking for, it's not going to happen. And that includes names of former LNC members. I might say a former LNC member. I'm not going to mention names. That's in the past. That is in the past, like I said. So let's go over what has gone on. And I'm going to be brutally honest about some things that people might go, well, maybe, I don't know. I'll try to be as diplomatic as possible. But I want to deal... No, my microphone is on. Everyone else hears me. Justin? Is the sound bad? Okay, you guys are going to need to let me know because it's pinging on my board. You guys let me know. It doesn't sound the same. Let me try my other microphone. Let me try this one. Let's go back to this one and see how that works. You guys gonna need to let me know. Let's try. How's this? Is this better? Let me know if this is better. And let me pull this down. Is this one better? Because this is my normal microphone. And it takes, I know there's like a 30-second delay. Okay, this microphone just isn't working well. I'm going to have to troubleshoot that. All right, everybody, sorry about that. I don't know why that one's not working well. Earlier today with the Cult of RONR, I wonder if that one was sounding okay. I haven't been happy with the... Okay. Oh my God. Oh my God. Let me pull it down. You guys are going to laugh. Okay. No wonder it sounded distant. Oh my God. I want to show you something. Okay. This was the mic I was using. Do you notice something funny about it? Just look. It's not a wireless mic. You want to know why it sounded like my microphone wasn't on? It wasn't plugged in. Oh my God. I probably sounded terrible on Cult of RONR today. I turned down the gain, so you guys, it should be better. Oh, yeah, no, it's a Blue Yeti Pro, because if you noticed, it was XLR. Okay. Oh, that is funny. Oh my God. That is funny. This is a good mic too, though. You guys know my shows are rambly, so if you don't like that, you're not going to enjoy this. Wait, I forgot what brand this is, but I really like this one too. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. I like this mic too. That's what happened. Mine wasn't great in the RO&R stream. You guys should have said something during that stream. So I was getting picked up on Mike's mic because this one wasn't plugged in. Yep, it's an Audio Technica. You got it. Okay. Oh my God. That is hilarious. I wish you guys had said something earlier. Next time, if I don't sound good, go, is your mic plugged in? Okay, we're good now. Everything's fine down here. How are you? Bonus points to anyone who gets that reference. In a room full of geeks, you all should have gotten that reference. All right, so we're back. Sorry for the distant sound. Okay. Man, I'm such a dummy. So what's gone on these past 2 weeks? A lot of cleaning up. A lot of cleaning up. So, one of the first things I needed to do when I came back into the role is the website. We've been super short-staffed, as you guys know. And yeah. Oh, I'm just laughing because you guys did get boring conversation. Anyway, earlier today on the Cult of R&R, those people did not watch the IT crowd. I don't know if I can live with an audience that's never seen the IT crowd. Oh, yeah. Aren't they nice? Okay, but anyway, I'm getting so distracted. So the first thing I needed to do was clean up the website. So if you guys go to the committees page, it's now fully updated. The regions are updated. The LNC is updated. Now the new policy manual is uploaded. I mean, that's kind of important. The platform is updated. I did that within a couple days. I am cold. I'm sorry if you hear a hum in the background. I have to put on my little desk heater. I'm in the basement. It's cold. The last thing I have left to do is the minutes. Now, this is the first controversy we're going to deal with, is the great minutes controversy. Now, this isn't a controversy within the LNC. This is a controversy with members. And I love libertarians. Let's just put it that way. We can make the biggest deal out of things that simply aren't a big deal. And that's great because we're very dramatic, but that's also not great because it's almost like the boy that cried wolf. You know, like when everything's a government conspiracy, and everything's not a government conspiracy, but I know we like to pretend like everything's a government conspiracy. People aren't going to believe us when there actually is a government conspiracy. So, with MinutesGate that's going on right now, people flipping the hell out over something that is really quite boring and procedural, people are not going to believe you if this LNC does actually go off the rails and you start freaking about something legitimate, because they're going to go, you made a big deal out of minutes. Okay, so what is MinutesGate? First, it started off with something I've already explained, and I brought the current edition of the Most Holy Word so that if we need to refer to it, we can. I need to get these questions from Cult of R&R off the table here. It started out with the motion to rescind and expunge from the website. the censure of not for the website. I was reading website and sponged from the minutes the censure of Joshua Smith. Now, I explained in the meeting what that meant. Richard Brown explained in the meeting what that meant. Roberts explains what that means. It is not erasing history. It's a parliamentary term to express the strongest disapproval of an action. If you wanted to disapprove of the people who did the action, you would censure them. I have no desire to be vindictive with the former LNC, but I did desire to right some wrongs. And I do think the censure of Joshua Smith was wrong. And if you didn't watch the live stream when I made the motion, this is the way I argued it. I said, I'm not even asking any of you to agree that Joshua Smith deserved or didn't deserve to be censured. I don't think he deserved it. But even if you did, that really isn't the point. The point is, if he deserved to be censured, about 6 people on that LNC deserve to be censured. And I think that is without a doubt. So I moved to rescind and expunge because it was obviously, to me, a vindictive move. That's why. I personally don't think he deserved it, but don't impute that to everyone who voted for it. What everyone agreed upon was that Joshua was targeted, and that wasn't right. That is all that meant. And rescinding and expunging from the minutes is there will be a little ceremony, which I can't wait to do. It's been kind of like a Roberts fantasy of mine, like a fetish. The minute I read about it, I'm like, oh, I want to do that. So there'll be a little ceremony at the next meeting where I will bring a hard copy of the minutes and a black marker, and you bracket. You don't blot out. You bracket the offending action, and you handwrite on the side, rescinded and expunged from the minutes and the date that the motion passed. It doesn't erase anything from history. The record that he was censured remains and will always remain. It's different than what happened to me at convention. At convention, the convention determined that I never was validly removed as secretary. So, even though for a period of time, the LNC didn't recognize that, I never lost the title. Rescinding and expunging from the minutes is not the same thing. Joshua was in fact censored from January through May. He was censured on January 17th. It still remains valid from January through May. We rescinded it. It wasn't voided. There's a difference. There's a big, big difference. So it's not erasing history, but oh my goodness, the drama after that. Now I can understand if those of you out there did not think that he was targeted and you thought my motion was wrong, by all means be upset about it, but be upset over the right thing. All I moved was to express the strongest disapproval of the action while not condemning the actors. Actually, what I did was very careful to avoid people and deal with actions. But it is absolutely insane, the drama that came out of that. The party historian is expunging history. No, I'm not. It still exists. It was valid. I'm going to write a whole article about it on LPedia. I'm bringing actually more attention to it than was ever drawn to it before. There's people here who didn't even know that Joshua was censored. I just saw in chat, and I had to tell them. So, I'm not erasing history. This is a parliamentary move. That is it. Be upset over the right thing. If you wanted his censure to remain in place, that's what you should be upset about, not over a rescind and expunge from the minutes. It doesn't erase history. 50 years from now, party members will know that on January 17th, 2020, Joshua Smith was censured. And a few days later, he put out a t-shirt that said, "Censure these nuts," or "these nuts." So that's the first part of Minutesgate. The second part of Minutesgate is, now we'll go to what happened with me at convention. My removal was voided. Some people don't agree with that. There's two paths to not agree with that. One path is you think it was perfectly valid. Another path is whether or not you think it was perfectly valid. Yeah, Chuck, if you want to explain that. A lot of people don't know the difference between censure and censor. There's a difference. Another path to think the voiding of my removal was not valid has to do with it being irrelevant whether or not you agreed with it. You don't think the convention had the authority to do that. Those are two paths in which you can disagree with the decision. But the fact is, the decision is what it is, whether or not you agree with it. It's done. And I respect people who disagree. Particularly the ones who disagree and say, yeah, I thought your removal was bullshit, but, you know, bullshit happens, and the convention didn't have the authority to do that. They did. In my worldview, and in my interpretation of Roberts, not just my worldview, but I'm backing away for this part of the discussion from Roberts. We'll go back to Roberts in a second, because I do want to read the grounds upon which they're allowed to do this. And there's also a very interesting DC law that talks about this as well. And there might be a law in some other areas of the country, but I forgot even where I was going. Oh, I'm moving away from Roberts for a second and just talking libertarian principles. If you don't think the ultimate authority for the actions of this party rests with the members, we're just on different planets. That's always going to be my default, and I'm going to say something really heretical here. Roberts be damned. The ultimate authority always rests with the delegates and convention. However, Roberts doesn't have to be damned in this circumstance, because yes, the delegates and convention did have that. And we're gonna go over this for a second here. We want to look up appeals for a second, or points of order, is it? No, points of order, because then they appealed from the point of order. So let's look up points of order here. You'd think I've had this page memorized. I think it's 53.6. Or is it 43.6? Hold on. Point of order. 1 second. Timeliness. Oh, no, 23.5. Why was I going to 43? Ugh. I've been looking up so many references lately. So 23.5. Now remember, the point of order that was raised, and the reason why I'm going over this, now I'm going to say a former LNC member. This is deeply disturbing to me. And Chuck, as a Judicial Committee member, former Judicial Committee member, Judicial Committee former member, what's right? Is it former Judicial Committee member? Or is it Judicial Committee former member? Because the Judicial Committee still exists. The Judicial Committee is not former. But we do say former LNC member. I don't know. Now I'm just like confusing myself. Anyway, you used to be on the JC and you're not anymore by choice. You didn't rerun. That's the long way of saying. You should find what I'm about to say disturbing. A member of the former LNC, upon hearing that my removal was voided, went on Facebook and said, this isn't an exact quote, but it is substantively, how can she be saying that she didn't get due process? Where even would we find these steps that she's claiming weren't given to her? Like, where is this process even laid out? Now just think about that for a second. Every single one of my arguments in defense cited where due process could be found. This former LNC member, and I believe their question wasn't playing dumb, that they are asking in absolute good faith, where is this due process laid out? Realize what's being said. They never read any of my defense. If they don't know that the basic issue in my defense was you can't even get to looking at evidence until you follow the due process procedures in Roberts Chapter 63, which are very detailed. If you didn't even know that was the issue, oh my God. How could you remove someone from an elected position and not even understand what their defense was, or you didn't care? How could you be puzzled? Now, I understand there are party members and former LNC members that understand and just disagree that I needed to have those due process procedures. But to not even know that is what the argument was? I am shocked. What this means is not only did I not get the due process accorded to me in Chapter 63, I didn't even get the basic due process respect of having my written submissions read. And it wasn't just at the motion level on the LNC. Every single filing nearly that I made to the Judicial Committee mentioned the issue. If you do not believe that I was railroaded, there is something wrong with you. Even if you believed that you would have been removed anyway, they could have followed every due process thing in Chapter 63 and you would have been removed anyway. That's not the point. The point is they didn't even, not they, this one person, and I'm using the they because I'm not even trying to reveal a gender. This singular they, and actually one other LNC member agreed in comments with this person. So there's a dual they, didn't even understand what my argument was. And they're not dumb people. So I have to assume they didn't read it. Because we're not talking about like your average person on the street where talking Robert's Rules of Order would go over their head. You're talking about Libertarian National Committee members. You should be shocked and appalled, honestly. And there is absolutely now no doubt that I was railroaded, that the process nobody cared about. All that was cared about was getting rid of me. And whether or not you agree that I should have been gotten rid of, you should agree that that's not what you would want. Chuck, you should expect LNC members to read it, but forget about the JC thing. The point of order that was made prior to the motion at the LNC meeting had a parliamentary opinion attached to it that was only 2 pages that was sent to the LNC prior to that meeting, written by JJ. If you can't expect an LNC member to read and understand the argument for a point of order being raised by an officer elected on the first round with over 50% of the vote prior to voting to remove them, then I'm sorry, we have different expectations. I expect the delegates' votes to be honored and their choice to be respected. And you can't even be bothered. And the you isn't you, anybody in chat. The you is the out there, is the vague you, the anybody you. To read 2 pages? of a parliamentary opinion. So I want to condense down for you guys because I want to show you how this isn't complicated. Now, you don't have to agree with this argument, but we're going to go to the Holy Word. And H. Reardon, I noticed the comment there, the woke comment. I am a little bit woke. I've always admitted that. I just don't think that's the party's position. I've got a lot of SJW in me. I just don't think that's the party's position. I'm against the party's drift towards wokeism because that's the party. Me, in my personal social activism, yeah, now I know, Richard, you don't have that opinion and JJ disagrees with you. But that I can respect. That I can respect. But it happened. Who makes the final decision? The body does. Parliamentary advice, the chair rules, but it's always in the hands of the body. So, I want to explain the argument to you. You don't have to agree with it. But the fact that an LNC member didn't even know this was the argument, and I know Richard can't opine. Well, it's a past LNC member, so maybe he can. I don't know. I'm not going to ask him for his opinion on an LNC member saying they didn't even know where they could possibly find the due process that I was claiming I was needed. It's pretty shocking. So 23.5 is timeliness of a point of order. Because the first thing that should come to your mind when you hear that a delegate raised a point of order at convention, the first thing that should come to your mind is what? Points of order have to be raised at the time of the breach. You can't raise a point of order months later, and generally that is true. So for instance, you know, a motion didn't get a second and it looks like the chair's proceeding with it anyway, you got to raise that point of order right then. After the motion's been put, like if you didn't raise that point of order right then and debate has started, it's too late. You didn't raise the point of order timely, it's waived. Most points of order are that way. If you do not raise them at the moment of the breach, that's why you can shout it from your chair, it's waived. But there are certain circumstances in which it's not, and it can be raised at any time. And this is one of those circumstances. Arguably, I know, let's just say on the record, Richard Brown disagrees, the other parliamentarian in chat, JJ, disagrees with Richard, and I'm the third one, and I disagree with both of them most of the time. But I agree with JJ on this issue. But JJ and I disagree a lot of times too. So, we're going to go to 23.6. Let us all revere. Hold on. We have Ron Paul and we have Roberts. We need another thing here for the Trinity. I need a copy of the Ethics of Liberty and we'd have the Holy Trinity right here. All right, 23.6. The only exceptions to the requirement that a point of order must be made promptly at the time of the breach arise in connections with breaches that are of a continuing nature, whereby the action taken in violation of the rules is null and void. In such cases, a point of order can be made at any time during the continuance of the breach. That is, any time that the action has continuing force and effect, regardless of how much time has elapsed. And example number A main motion has been adopted that conflicts with the bylaws or constitution of the organization. And that is the argument that was made, was that my removal violated the bylaws. Now, I know not everyone agrees with that, but just pretend for a second that you do agree with that. That is the grounds. Now do you understand where that, why the point of order? I'm just trying to get you guys to understand, not agree. So that's how the point of order was raised. Ken ruled the point of order not well taken. I actually don't think he actually believed it wasn't well taken because he said at that time, I'm trying to get to the other section I'm looking for here. I'm looking for removal from office. 1 second. It's 6216. Got it. Okay. Because what he said is, I really just want the body to decide this, so I guess the quickest way to do this is for me to rule it not well taken. Then there'll be an appeal. And then there was an appeal, and he goes, there you go. I don't think Ken realized that he could have said the chair is uncertain and immediately put it to the body. I think if he knew that that he could do that, he wouldn't have ruled it not well taken. He just wanted it to get to, he wanted the body to decide it. Matt Hartley asked, why wouldn't the convention have the right to undo an LNC action? Is it an unring the bell issue? Not in this case. That isn't the argument that's made in opposition. The argument that's made in opposition is that the LNC and the JC have full authority on this, and it's outside the scope of the convention. I absolutely disagree. This is an issue of bylaws interpretation, and the ultimate interpreter of the bylaws is the Assembly, not the fucking LNC. Anybody who's making that argument, or even the JC, to be honest with you, anyone who's making that argument, be careful what you ask for. Just look back at past LNCs and think, really? No. That's what happened in a lot of these state parties where we had issues. You had a board that had an agenda, and they decided, like Will McVeigh, that notice meant you could put a notice on a Facebook page and then immediately bury it with 300 memes. I did notice. Notice didn't say that anyone actually had to see the notice. And Alicia cut right through that crap and said, oh, so if you posted white text on a white background, that would be giving notice, right? I mean, nobody said anyone had to be able to see it. And my argument was that, yeah, if notice doesn't mean anyone has to see or understand it, then just write it in Dothraki and be done with it. So, no, the LNC does not have the ultimate authority to interpret the bylaws. They and the JC interpret the bylaws in between conventions. Absolutely. But when you get to convention, the delegates do. So, the argument then was, how did it violate the bylaws? It violated the bylaws because the terms of, and this is so obscure that it can be a little difficult for non-parliamentarians. Not because it's hard to understand, it's because it's mind-boggling that so much could ride on whether or not, on how your bylaws describe the term of office. And in some bylaws, it literally hinges upon whether the word and is used or the word or is used. That's why I'm begging you guys, when you're messing with your bylaws, for the love of God, get a parliamentarian to help you. You can... Is that Wayne? Is Wayne sawing upstairs? Do you hear that? Just let me, if you guys hear that, I'm gonna like pound on the ceiling with a broom. I think he is sawing upstairs. Well, if you hear that, that's Wayne. Anyway, so before you can even get to the suspension, which is what LNC calls removal, I disagree with D. Frank that word suspension is vague. I think the bylaws are perfectly clear they mean removal. Before you get to the suspension/removal clause in the bylaws, you have to look at the terms of office. And the way the terms of office for officers, and Roberts does make a difference between officers and the rest of the LNC, the way the terms of office are described in the LNC bylaws makes a difference. So, you go to Roberts 6216. And we're going to move on to other LNC business. This is going to be a long stream. We have 2 weeks to cover. So 6216 say, any regularly elected officer of a permanent society can be removed from office by the society's assembly as follows. And it gives 2 different paths. First one says, if the bylaws provide that officers shall serve for blank number of years or until their successors are elected, the officer in question can be removed from office by the adoption of a motion to do so, which is how I was removed, by the adoption of a motion to do so. But our bylaws don't use that wording. The bylaws say, if, however, the bylaws provide that the officers shall serve only a fixed term, such as for 2 years or for X years and until their successors are elected, an officer can be removed from office only for cause. That is neglect of duty in office or misconduct and in accordance with the procedures described in Section 63. And Section 63 here in Roberts, I don't know if you can see that, it says investigation and trial. And there's a whole bunch of procedures about a fair disciplinary process that officers are accorded if that wording appears in their bylaws. And that is the wording that appears in our bylaws. And there's something in here that you guys, I should have, I'm trying to find something here. Okay. Matt, no. Delegates cannot order the new LNC to do anything because the bylaws don't give them the authority to do that, and it's not an issue of bylaws interpretation. I know it's a subtle difference here. They could suggest it, but they can't order them to do something. But they can order something to be undone that was in contravention of the bylaws. It's a slight distinction. But here's something. The only way the removals from office can't be rescinded. That's an unring the bell situation. The convention didn't rescind it. It's impossible to rescind a removal. They voided it as if it never happened. That's the difference between the Joshua situation and me. And why people go, no, they just rescinded it. No, you can't rescind a removal. The only way to rescind a removal is by reinstatement, but the removal was still valid. Oh my God, my phone is, hold on. I'm nearly out of power. How did that happen? Hold on. Is it not charging? Well, we may end up having to go to my other camera with the shitty lighting. But anyway, so that's where that came from. Agree or don't agree, at least now you understand, which is more than those two LNC members did. But there's something I want to read in here which should oh, there's another part to it. Then you go to the suspension clause in the bylaws and you go, yeah, but it says it's the except clause. Except as the bylaws may provide otherwise. I was getting to that part. The bylaws do provide otherwise only when it comes to the vote threshold. It does not mention the process. And the fact that the prior bullet point in Roberts says that if the bylaws say X, they can be removed by a mere motion. And the second one says, unless the bylaws provide otherwise, they have to go through due process, meaning it can't be a mere motion. In order for the bylaws to say otherwise, the bylaws would have to specifically say by motion, and it doesn't. That is where the argument is. And I would hope that libertarians, even if they're not clear, would always side on the side of due process. Now, that argument, that second part of the argument, the first part was a parliamentary argument. It's very explicit in Roberts. This path you can remove by mere motion. This path you can't unless the bylaws say otherwise. And what that means is that the bylaws have to say by mere motion. Or by motion. Mere is my addition. Otherwise, you just made Roberts nonsensical. I'm sorry. I really don't think... I respect that people disagree, but I don't think there's any argument here. I don't find it ambiguous at all. The convention can easily, when they pass that bylaw, have said by motion via a 2/3 vote. And they didn't. And as JJ pointed out, but I don't agree with JJ here. But this is JJ's opinion. He believes there could be a policy manual provision that says removal could be by motion. I actually don't agree with him there. I think it has to be in the bylaws. So here's where JJ and I disagree, but it doesn't matter because it wasn't in the policy manual either. I don't think that's what 49.7 says. We're going to go to that. Let me look at that before we continue here. 49.7. They could order the LNC around by amending the bylaws. But they can't when the bylaws give certain authority to the LNC. It says, in no event, no action of the board can alter or conflict with any decision made by the assembly of this society. But the assembly of the society has to act in accordance with the bylaws. And if the bylaws reserve certain things, like disaffiliation of affiliates to the LNC, the assembly can't order the LNC to do that. They would have to change the bylaws. We talked about that in a different show. Yeah, and JJ, as a non-libertarian, says there's a reason to always come down on the side of individual rights. The fact that this could be even argued, which anyone who says it can't be argued, I'm sorry, you're I know I got to switch that, Chuck. Somebody pointed that out to me earlier. Anyone who says this can't be argued, I'm sorry, I don't believe them. I understand people who think it's arguable. I don't, but I do understand people think it's arguable. But people who say it's not arguable on the other side, I'm sorry, I just don't believe them. And JJ has a point. If it's at all arguable, you side on the side of individual rights. I shouldn't have to tell libertarians that. But there's something really here in Roberts that should resonate with the libertarian heart. It says, a member or officer has the right that allegations against his good name shall not be made except by charges brought on reasonable ground. If thus accused, he has the right to due process, that is, to be informed of the charge and given time to prepare his defense, to appear and defend himself and be fairly treated. I got none of those things. They couldn't even point to timestamps in hours and hours of videos. But anyway, that's what happened. So this goes back to MinutesGate. I'm sorry, we had to go backwards to go forward. So one of my first motions was, because this has smeared my good name. That's why I wanted to read that. And it has had real life effects. I know people think that these motions and the little petty vindictive things they do, like, are games. They're not games to people whose lives have been impacted. I've explained before how this has had real world impact on my life. When I say real world, I mean outside of the party. And I'm not going to go into that again. So, because of that, I made a motion that an annotation be made to the minutes where the suspension motion was passed, an annotation be made that this action of the LNC was rendered null and void at the 2022 convention. See convention minutes for more details. I'm not saying to blot out that section. I'm not saying to hide that section. But people are like, she's rewriting history. No, I'm giving a full, complete history. Someone reading those minutes should know, hey, this happened in September, but this action was later, and it's such a serious action, was later voided. That is making history complete. The people that are freaking out, I'm sorry, I see no honest case to be made to freak out over putting an annotation in the minutes. That is so that people reading the minutes 10 years from now know what happened. Because people don't do like I did. Now, Chuck Moulton knows I did this. When I was first trying to get familiar with the party and everything, I printed out every single set of minutes I could find, including convention minutes, and I put them all in this big-ass binder, and I read every single page. That's how I knew there was an alleged backdoor to the statement of principles that happened way before I was ever in the party. because I printed out every single set of minutes I could find and read them all. Normal people don't do that. Normal people don't. I'm not normal. But that's what I did. Oh my God, I remember that binder. I think I still have it. It was like a 4-inch binder. But that's how I got up to speed really fast. Most people who might be happen to read the September minutes are not going to sit there with a big binder and go, okay, well, let's keep reading. And then they're going to end up at the 2022 convention minutes and go, oh, I remember reading about that in the September 2021 meetings. Interesting. It was undone. No, that's not the way normal people are. The minutes are to inform people what are the decisions of the assembly, so they know where they stand, they know what their committee has done, so on, so forth. Putting an annotation in the September minutes is educating the party membership and providing a more complete record. And I agree with Chuck on this. To some people, the convention action is controversial. I don't think so, but I get that people do. I think you can think it's controversial in good faith. But the annotation, no. There's no good faith reason to find that controversial. There just isn't. I'm sorry. If you're one of those people, check yourself before you wreck yourself. I think you are just looking for a reason to be mad. Yes, it's understandable that the convention action can be controversial, but it is what it is. Lots of things are controversial. Deleting the abortion plank was controversial. I didn't want to do it, but it happened. Okay? Lots of things are controversial, but the annotation should not be controversial. And yes, now I did want to go to the next thing in Roberts. Thank you for giving me that citation so I didn't have to look it up. So people freaking out over this is ridiculous. It really is. And if you're one of them out there, maybe you just didn't understand all of this. Now you do. And we're going to put a tidy little bow on it with the reference that JJ just gave to Roberts 48.3. Oh, and you get a ringed copy of Roberts. I just saw that. You get that at the National Association of Parliamentarians store. And it's really not that much more than Amazon. Buy your books and stuff there because it helps them. And you also you can get these tabs there too. And if you don't like this and you want to put it in a notebook, this is Mike Seebeck's. You can get, a binder like this. So you can also buy it where it's just hole punched and put it in a notebook. And it's got either, you could put it in a 3-hole or it's that 7-hole, like whatever. I have a hardbound notebook one too that I used to travel with because it protects it. But anyway, you can do that too. But 48.3. It says, to modify the rules governing what is regularly to be included in the minutes requires adoption of a special rule of order, which we have special rules of order because we add all kinds of things to our minutes. And it says, although a majority vote may direct the inclusion of specific additional information in the minutes of a particular meeting. So adding that annotation is perfectly in order. Also, now we're going to get to MinutesGate Part 2, which is just starting. And it's going to heat up even more. So I'm just going to let you guys know. The November minutes, which aren't terrible. Tim Hagan is a decent secretary. He was serving as secretary pro tem while the Judicial Committee process was going, or it was right after. I don't know. There was a meeting where he was secretary. It was before John Wilford came into the picture. And Tim Hagan is a decent secretary. But there were some things in those minutes that really were stylistically weren't like the former minutes, and considering that my removal was voided and I was the party secretary in November, whether or not the LNC wishes to recognize that That LNC wishes to recognize that. I had prepared a set of minutes in November. I continue, and here's what's funny. My behavior throughout that whole period of time, up through convention, evidences that whether or not you agree, I was certainly convinced I wasn't validly removed. I still did minutes for every meeting I could. I still kept track of every vote. I did every duty of my office that I was able to do. Of course, I was obviously prevented from voting and doing a lot of those other things, but I fulfilled every other duty in my office that I could do, including minutes. So once back on the LNC list, I'm taking a look at past minutes because I'm ultimately responsible for them because I was secretary during that whole time. And I took a look at Mr. Hagan's minutes. And his minutes, actually, Tim would be a good state secretary. And I don't say that about a lot of people. Tim's a good secretary. Tim's actually a good chair. A lot of people think he's so shy that he's not. And he's a good treasurer. I don't agree with his votes. My differences with Tim are ideological. They're not merit-based. They're not performance. And I think he's been an at-large before. I bet you Tim's good in every position he's ever been in. Yeah, Tim is good. Tim's one of the best proofreaders of the minutes, too. I don't like his votes, but as far as it's just like raw job performance, Tim Hagan is good. So his minutes weren't bad, particularly since he was pinch hitting. But there were some details in them that I normally include in minutes, and all the other past minutes have had them, including the QR codes and the links to where. Because remember, the minutes are a record of what was said, not what was done. But party members want to know what was said. It can't be in the minutes. I provide a link to the video. So, like, if you're reading a motion and you're like, why did these clowns vote for this? You could go right to that point in the video of a weekend-long LNC meeting in 16 hours or whatever and hear the argument and go, oh, now I understand. Now, that's not required, but that is something I've always added. That's custom. But more importantly, the minutes didn't have appendices attached to them. The minutes of that meeting was the first Massachusetts meeting. It's when it's when this sound clip was made.
Objection, speculative.
It's that meeting. It didn't have appendices that included all of the supporting documents submitted by the two factions in Massachusetts. And to me, party members would not have understood what was going on in that meeting without those documents. It's like attaching a report of an officer as far as I'm concerned. That was the issues that the LNC was considering, was all of that. And I also found it disrespectful, not purposely, to those two factions to just let all that evidence they submitted to be lost. So I did a amendment by substitution to substitute in for Tim's minutes the set that I did. The content is the same. The format's a little different. My style's a little different than Tim's. But the major difference was the timestamps to the video and the appendices. There is nothing controversial here, people. I'm not rewriting history. There's a former LNC member losing their mind, calling this 1984 on Twitter. I'm jealous of your life if a motion to substitute a set of minutes in which the record is the same. The only difference is including the evidence from the parties that were at issue for that meeting and video timestamps and maybe some slight way sentences were worded. If that is 1984 to you, you need some real problems in your life. If you think that's 1984, you need to get out of your fucking house more often. Or just admit that you're exaggerating because you don't like me. It's not 1984. There's a real world crap going on that's 1984. Substituting a more complete set of minutes with appendices is not 1984. Get a grip. So there's minute skates too. Minute Gate 3 is the draft December minutes. There were minutes done in December. This is when John Wilford was serving as Secretary Pro Tem. Of course, at the time, no, the LNC didn't recognize him as Secretary Pro Tem. They recognized him as LNC Secretary. Looking back, with the voiding, he was Secretary Pro Tem. It was a budget meeting. A budget meeting to do your first set of minutes when you have had no training. And the LNC, because they hated the lady they just got rid of, gives you no feedback or constructive criticism on your minutes. They did not serve John well. John's minutes were not good, and that wasn't entirely his fault. You want to know why my minutes are good? It's because Alicia Matson wouldn't have it any other way. Like, if I mess something up, Alicia Matson let me know. And I'm not saying that as to be critical of her. I'm grateful. But this past LNC, because they disliked me so much, they gave him no, or virtually no, because there's a couple emails I know people are going to go, really wasn't no. It's kind of like the vaccine mandates. It isn't that we said nothing. Yeah, you said virtually nothing. They gave him very little feedback, so he couldn't improve. Like, none of them ever said on the LNC list, dude, there's nobody on the LNC by the name of David Dassing. David Dassing appears in every single set of minutes. There's nobody on the LNC by the name of David Dassing. But they never told him that. There's mistakes that I'm blind to, that until somebody points them out, I'll keep making them. You're not doing anyone any favors if you don't point out a mistake they're making. And in minutes that just got approved at the pre-convention meeting, John Wilford listed himself as treasurer. They never gave him any feedback. That's not, how are you supposed to learn? And these are approved. The footer on some of them says December, when we were talking about a meeting that happened in March. David Dassing still appears in these minutes. And guess who else still appears? David Sexton, 2 months or a month and a half after he resigned. Because that LNC hated me so much, they never gave him any constructive feedback because they didn't want anyone to make it look like I did a better job. And of course I did a better job. I was in the position for longer. A brand new secretary is going to make mistakes. But you want to know what's funny? And I'm grateful for this, though I will comment on the hypocrisy. Some former LNC members are reading my minutes and they are writing me with all kinds of minute mistakes I made. And I am grateful. I am grateful for them writing me and telling me things like I misspelled Evan McMahon's last name wrong in one spot. Instead of H-O-N, I put H-A-N. I'm grateful for that. But this is a former LNC member that pointed that out. Why didn't you do that with John? You would have made him a better secretary. You didn't do him any favors. You wronged him. I want people to write me if I screwed up a comma. It makes me a better secretary. And my minutes are never going to be perfect, but I want them to be as close to perfect as they can. So please, I want you guys to scrutinize my minutes. And Chuck Moulton will tell you, when I was brand new, I was so scared of Alicia. Chuck reviewed my minutes for me ahead of time. I'd send out copies to like 5 people before I'd dare put them on the LNC list because I knew Alicia was not going to let me get away with anything. But Alicia made me a better secretary. Now, so there's a motion now that the minutes that should be part of the official record for December are the minutes I did for the December meeting rather than the minutes that the Secretary Pro Tem did. That will be another minutes gate. Get over it, people. Look at my minutes. Is the record inaccurate? Is it inaccurate? If it's inaccurate, let me know. Let an LNC member know. Let them raise an objection and say, no, this needs to be corrected. And it will get corrected. Rather than just you're mad because it's my minutes, are they right or are they not right? I was LNC secretary during that time. Controversial or not, I'm sorry, that's what it is. So that's Minutes Gate Part 3. There's going to be Minutes Gates Part 5, 6, 7, 8. Because there is about 8 sets of minutes now that I just found out got approved at the pre-convention meeting, and I just mentioned to you guys some errors that are in those minutes. So now I've got to go through those minutes, compare them to the ones that I've prepared, and there are some I didn't prepare because there was at least one executive committee meeting for which no notice was given to the wider body and no recording was made. So I don't even know if those minutes are correct. But now I got to go through these sets of minutes and I need to look at them. And if there's just 1 or 2 errors, I'm going to make a motion to amend the minutes, like to correct David Dassing. But if there's so many errors in them that it's just easier to rewrite them, I'm going to move to substitute in my set of minutes. And there are some like that. There's a set in which it says, oh God, Richard, we're still arguing this. Tonight's going to be the last time I'm arguing this. The bylaws give the LNC exclusive authority to remove them as long as they follow the bylaws in removing them. But if they break the bylaws in removing them, the assembly can rule them out of order. Of course, so that's the whole argument. I think you're arguing in a circle, Richard. Like, of course, a circular argument makes sense because it's circular. With all due respect, because you know I love you. And I've got you to stop dressing like a funeral director, so mission accomplished. Let's drink to that. The funny thing is, Otto's name isn't even Otto. What's his real name? It's not even Otto. It's some other name. It's not David either. Oh, I know, Richard. I know. Richard, you know I love you. Okay, and I was agreeing with you, by the way, Richard, on 49.7. We talked about that with disaffiliation the other day. But if the LNC disaffiliated an affiliate and broke the bylaws in doing so, I believe they could void it. But the convention outside of an action of the LNC couldn't disaffiliate an affiliate. I hope that distinction made sense to people. I know it did to Richard. Yes, real name's Phil. It's not Otto or David. So there's going to be more minute skates. So as I look through these sets of minutes that were approved, if there's only 1 or 2 corrections to be made, I'm going to make a motion to amend, and we're going to leave it alone. But if for instance, there's some of them that the footer's wrong. It has the wrong date on every single page of the minutes. The template that John used is jacked up. I'm not going to correct a footer on every page on that template. The margins are all off. I don't know what he did to my template. So if there are so many changes where it just makes more sense to substitute in a new set of minutes, I'm going to be making those motions. People, get a grip. There's going to be things that you should be legitimately, not should be. There's things that you will be upset with this LNC for, and it's a legitimate disagreement. All of this angst and wailing and gnashing of teeth over the minutes that you're doing, all you're proving is that you are willing to cause a big drama because you don't like who the secretary is. Because if it was anybody else, you know damn well you wouldn't be saying a thing. because this is a nothing burger. It's a nothing burger. Sorry, it just is a nothing burger. So why don't you save your fury for something deserving of it? Well, actually, maybe I should just say get mad about minutes, because the next thing you get mad about, people are going to laugh at you. They're not going to take you seriously. So now let's talk about something that you could be legitimately mad at, that I was on the losing side of. And that is the Southern Poverty Law Center resolution. It failed in flames. 10-3. I was in the 3. And you want to know what? Am I ass mad about it? Nope. You win some, you lose some. I stand by my yes vote. I completely respect my 10 colleagues who voted no. I understood the reasons they gave. They weren't bad reasons. I just disagreed with them. And it's funny, but what I loved about that motion is how on our very first motion on the list, we proved that we're not going to walk in lockstep. I think everyone was expecting like all motions to be like 15-0, because most of the time Angela's not going to vote. 16-0. There's 17 members. If Angela doesn't vote, it's 16-0. I think everybody expected it. And for our first motion on the LNC list to be 10-3, I don't think they expected that at all. And it proved that we're not going to be monolithic. We're just not. We're going to disagree on things. And we disagreed agreeably. So far, we've been working really, really well together. I probably shouldn't say that because it seems like it's the hex, because everybody said that right before the last LNC. Yeah, but what if, JJ, the JC upheld it? Because a disaffiliated affiliate has an automatic right of appeal. The JC upholds it. I'm sorry, I think the convention can overturn it. Same thing. I view it the exact same way as I view my removal. Anyway. So that was, so those have been pretty, no, there's another motion we'll talk about. So all of the motions so far have been the Southern Poverty Law Center, the minutes motions. But what I think I'm going to do, because I just don't want to cause all of this drama with like 7 different motions about minutes, I think I'm going to save all of those motions for our in-person meeting in July and just do it during my secretary's report. Because people are just losing their shit over this for no reason. And I don't want to put people through that. And I don't want to give fodder for just Facebook drama. I think I'm going to give notice that I'm going to make this motion of certain substitutions and corrections at the July meeting and not do it by email, because people are just getting like way too upset. All right. So the next important motion was to resume our monthly e-meetings. I really think it was absolutely ridiculous that the monthly e-meetings got canceled last year. And what happened? Exactly what I predicted what would happen. The party, for the first half of 2022, or the first up through convention, was pretty much ruled by the executive committee. The executive committee, there are certain decisions in our policy manual that are reserved to the executive committee, which I actually disagree on, by the way. And I am probably going to be making motions to get rid of that. To me, the executive committee is there for things in which quick action is needed, that the full LNC doesn't have time to meet, to get everybody together. Otherwise, I believe decisions should be made by the full LNC. I do not like this rule by executive committee. But there are certain things in the policy manual that ballot access encumbrances have to be voted on by the executive committee. Approval of joining or filing a lawsuit has to be approved by the executive committee. I don't agree with that. I agree they should have the authority to do that if time constraints. I believe the executive committee should only be able to act if there's not enough time to assemble the full LNC. And I would love to see that policy manual. The delegates elected the LNC. They did not elect this board within a board. And I know the LNC can overrule the executive committee. Why add that extra step? And that is hard to do. You don't want to be that douche that's making the motion to overrule the executive committee. There's pressure not to do that. I know that because in 2017, as a brand new LNC member, I had to make a motion to rescind Nick Sarwark's authority to sign that. No, it was in 2016. Oh my God, I really was a brand new LNC member. To rescind Nick Sarwark's authority to sign the campaign contract with Gary Johnson. That, was terrifying. It's hard to do things like that. The rest of your colleagues are giving you the stink eye. No. The full LNC should be making decisions, not the executive committee. Plus, let me tell you another dirty little secret here, and this has nothing to do with the current LNC. This has been this way forever, and Chuck will know this. The executive committee mailing list, the distribution list, it's secret. And most of the things the executive committee discusses is not executive session. I know the word executive in both of them gets confusion. A lot of people think I say secret session just to be obnoxious. It does have a little bit of an obnoxious factor to it. I learned it from Star Child. But I like saying secret session so there's no confusion with executive committee. Because the word executive being in both of them confuses people. The LNC can enter into secret session. The executive committee can enter into secret session. But most executive committee things are supposed to be public. But that list is private. You can't subscribe to that list. You should be able to subscribe to it. Now, but I'll let you know, I don't know about last term. Ooh, I can go look now, can't I? Mama, listen, I won't do it without discussing it with the LNC, but I think all of the executive committee emails from last term should be made public. What do you think? Unless it qualified for executive session. I think I'm going to make that motion. Well, I'm going to go look to see first if there was ever any discussions. I can tell you, up through September, there were very few discussions on the executive committee list. Most of it was about scheduling a meeting. Like, hey, is everyone available in 2 days type thing. That's usually all it should be. But sometimes there is votes on the executive committee list. And I actually don't think that's proper, but that's a whole other thing that needs to be addressed in the policy manual. But there's a black hole that you guys might not have even known exists. Chuck knew it existed. That's why I made, when we were working together on bylaws, I was also thinking of the executive committee mailing list. And I can tell you right now, this term, there's been no discussions on that list, so you're not missing anything. Everything's been even scheduling the executive committee meeting. You saw I did that on the public list. Angela asked people if they were available on the public list. So there's been nothing happening on the... I don't even know if this LNC knows the executive committee list exists, to be honest with you. Because it's not used very much, but I'm now going to go look. I wonder what was discussed on that list. So, monthly meetings. That is so that we're not being ruled by executive committee. And I'm on the executive committee. So I'm not saying this because I'm ass mad that there's some decision that doesn't involve me. I'm an officer. I'm on the executive committee. I don't want that special power. The delegates elected a full LNC, and the full LNC should get to vote. And this executive committee is the 4 officers plus 3 at large. So this means the regions even have no say in this executive committee. Now, that wasn't a slight on the regions. That just happened to be who the LNC voted for, felt was the most qualified to be on the XCOM. It's not always that way. Last term, John Phillips, who was Region 6 representative, was on the executive committee. Regionals can be on it, but this term, there's no regionals. It's the 4 officers and 3 at-larges, I think. It is, isn't it? It's Elliot, Bowen, who's the third? And Nikayla. Yeah, it's 3 at-larges. So these monthly meetings then shorten the period of time where something might fall in between LNC meetings so that the executive committee has to be invoked. For the LNC to cancel, I think they canceled them beginning January, but maybe beginning February last term, there was all kinds of crap going on that they didn't have meetings for. So the motion I made, and it's going to pass unless a bunch of people change their votes, which I don't think they're going to, but of course they could. Here's the motion. It expires on the 15th. Hold on. Okay. I'm looking at the public list, and for some reason it doesn't want... Here we go. Motion that the LNC hold monthly e-meetings on the first Sunday of each month at 7 p.m. Eastern, subject to the following provisions. Number 1, these meetings shall be classified as special meetings as defined in our policy manual. Number 2, each meeting will last no longer than 2 hours without a motion to extend time passed by a 2/3 vote. Number 3, there will be no meeting if the first Sunday falls within a 3-week period either before or after a scheduled in-person meeting. Number 4, all agenda items must be noticed within 7 days of the meeting as required by the policy manual. Number 5, each meeting will have an opening period for public comment. Number 6, if no items are noticed, the meeting will be converted into a 1-hour town hall. So if we have nothing to discuss that month, then there'll be a town hall. Because those monthly meetings were where members got to talk to the LNC. You have to have that release valve. When you don't let members say what they want, they get angry. They're like angry birds, which aren't real. You got to, and the members are going to say things you don't like. Pull up your big girl knickers and suck it up, Buttercup. That is part of being in an elected position. That sometimes you got to listen to things you don't like. So I like this motion. I think it cured some of the problems we had last term where we had to do motions to cancel meetings because they were in the same month as a scheduled in-person meeting. Now, we are going to run into the issue where the first Sunday of the month, that might not have been the best day because a following Monday a lot of times is a holiday, but that was the one day everyone kind of was okay with. So our very first e-meeting would be July 3rd. And of course, some people are going to be like, yeah, but the 4th of July is the next day. To me, it's the 4th of July is the next day. It's not that day. Be there. But I don't know. They might move it or cancel it. But around holidays, it can be a problem. But I wanted to at least get it going. And unless it's canceled, there'll be a monthly town hall. So I hope I think that's a good motion. Let me see if anything else happened in business. And I'd love to answer any of y'all's questions. I'm going to my motions little record here. Oh, let me tell you another problem with some of the past minutes. I know people are going, oh, you're just trying to be mean to John. No, I'm not. Our policy manual requires that every substantive main motion be assigned a motion number. That's how we keep track of whatchamacallit. That's how we keep track of what we did. We now have a motion chart. You don't got to flip through like 100 sets of minutes. Well, I don't know what happened because John knew this. He did this in the December minutes, but a lot of the minutes after December, the motions don't have numbers attached to them. And that's required by our policy manual. So nearly every set of minutes is at least going to have to be amended. And I'm not doing that to be a douche. I know some people are going to think that. I'm not. I was secretary during that period of time. I'm responsible for this. I am not trying to be a douche to anybody. That's JJ's job. He'll get the joke. Okay, let me see of any other motions. So what do we have coming up? Okay, motions we passed. We encumbered $5,000. This was the executive committee. We encumbered $5,000 for New Hampshire ballot access. That passed the executive committee. We encumbered $30,000 for... Yeah, there are sound clips right there, JJ, for sure. We encumbered $30,000 for Libertarian Party of Illinois ballot access to be released in two payments of $15,000 when certain milestones are reached. Okay, there's the minutes gate. There's monthly e-meetings. Oh, derp. The most important motion of all that we passed. I already did a show on it. That's why I forgot. We also recognized Andrew Cordio as chair of the Libertarian Party of Massachusetts. I did a whole show on that. But that was done on the 5th. Yeah, and here's the motion that everyone's like losing their shit over, the annotation for the September minutes. Here's the motion. That the secretary be directed to date and put the following note in the September 2021 LNC meeting minutes immediately following the report of the roll call vote for the suspension of Karen Ann Harlos. And here's what the note is. The suspension was retroactively declared null and void at the 2022 National Libertarian Party Convention. Please see those convention minutes for further details. Completely short, unobtrusive. Okay. Then we did the Southern Poverty Law Center. And then we're going back now to the meeting we had at the convention site. Our next in-person LNC meeting will be in the D.C. area, July 30th through 31st, probably in Alexandria, Virginia. We set the meeting for Massachusetts thing. We appointed Brian Elliott as the temporary assistant treasurer. If you don't understand why it's temporary, we might make him permanent. Assistant treasurer is required by the FEC. You have to have a spare treasurer. It's like the heir and the spare. You have to have a spare for the FEC. It can be another LNC member because it's not a separate LNC position. But typically, it's not another LNC member. So it may end up being Brian Elliott as the permanent temporary secretary. But I made the motion for temporary because we usually ask members, because we like to train up people if anyone would like to apply to the position and make it a non-LNC member. Because if Mr. Hagopian was out of commission for a little while and Mr. Elliott had to step in as treasurer, either the treasurer as an officer, you can't vote twice. So there would be a missing vote. Even though he would be treasurer pro tem and at large, there would be a missing vote. So anyway, I think there'd be a missing vote anyway. So maybe I'm not thinking clearly on this one, but whatever. I like spreading the wealth, but he might end up being the permanent assistant treasurer. But right now he's the temporary one because we're required to do that immediately. I was appointed again as Historical Preservation Committee chair. I forgot we passed that. We appointed the APRC, which was Dave Benner, Pat Ford, myself. 1, 2, 3, 4. My notes are wrong here. Joshua Smith was elected too. See, I just noticed an error in my notes. I'm going to fix that right now. And Joshua Smith. So it's myself, Pat Ford, Dave Benner, Connor Nepomuceno, and Joshua Smith are on the APRC. We elected the XCOM, which we already talked about. We rescind and expunged from the minutes the censure of Joshua Smith. We suspended any further disbursements from that line of credit that was passed in the twilight of the last LNC until the next LNC meeting. So it's kind of frozen, that line of credit. We did the Defend the Guard resolution. And we did the resolution calling for the pardon of Edward Snowden. So that's all of the LNC business in the past 2 weeks. I think we got a lot done. And it's been productive. It hasn't walked in lockstep. The only unanimous votes so far were at the post-convention meeting, and they had to be in order to pass because resolutions done without previous notice are our bylaws say it has to be not of the entire LNC, but of the LNC that's there, the quorum that's there. It has to be unanimous when a resolution is presented without previous notice. It would have required 2/3 anyway, even with previous notice, but it required everybody. And is it a 2/3 of the entire LNC? I think it's a 2/3, or is it a 2/3 vote? I can't remember. It's been a while. So any questions? What else has gone on? Messaging has improved, I think. I know some people don't agree, but the Twitter has been fantastic. Dave Benner, if he's still in chat, is part of our Twitter team. Was Massachusetts unanimous? No. It was unanimous, I guess. Yeah, I abstained, but that's not a vote. So, yeah. Okay, you're right. It was. I abstained. Who else abstained? I know Angela did, but didn't somebody else abstain? Was it Dustin? Somebody else abstained. All right. There were no abstentions on those resolutions, though. That's kind of what I meant. Unanimous without abstention. Oh, there was more than one abstention. Oh, an absence, you said. Okay. Who wasn't there? Joshua? Anyway, going off track. So I believe the messaging has gotten a lot better on Twitter. There's been a little bit of controversy about that. Of course there was. We're libertarians. Let me tell you, I'm not going to say there's been a controversy because that's not news. What will be news is if I say such and such happened and no one was upset. Never happens. Oh, if there's anything, and I'm saying this in love because I'm one of you, we love getting lathered up. Like, we just like working up a big old lather over everything. We are the perpetually indignant, aren't we? Libertarians live in a state of perpetual indignation. Oh my God. Okay. So that happened. Dean is saying libertarians will never agree 100%, but do they agree 100% on that? Let's argue about it. I haven't really paid much attention to Facebook messaging. From what I understand, we have some new volunteers there as well as some of the former volunteers like Keith Thompson, who is amazing. He does most of the graphics for Facebook, and if you've liked our graphics, it's Keith Thompson. You know that shirt I have that everyone loves that says legalize recreational cocaine? That's Keith Thompson. The most popular meme, God, I should have had it for the screen, that Libertarian Party of Colorado put out, Keith Thompson designed for us. And it was a meme that had a picture of the capital of D.C. And it said, government is a necessary evil. And then it had a fake little Facebook fact check false on it. That meme was the most popular one that we've ever had in Colorado. And that was designed by Keith Thompson. And we had libertarians taking it seriously. Facebook didn't really fact check that. Okay, Karen, Libertarian Karen, okay. So, some people aren't happy messaging-wise, so let me address that controversy. Some of them are saying that we should be focusing more on the fact that it's Pride Month. I do think we need to have some messaging that deals with Pride Month, but I don't think we need to focus a whole month on it. Our position is do what you want without state interference as long as you're not harming anybody else. That goes for everybody. That goes for gay people, goes for straight people, it goes for asexual people, it goes for people. And we did have one tweet. Probably over the course of the month, I think we should probably have about 5 tweets on Pride Month. That isn't the way the former LNC handled things. They really bought into the identity politics. And I more agree where we're focusing on things like inflation. Because honestly, the whole Pride thing now has become so corporatized that I don't even understand why the wider LGBT community even supports it, because it's so commercialized. It's like me as a Christian with Christmas. Like, I don't do any of the, like, I don't even hardly enjoy Christmas. It's been so commercialized. It's not about the birth of Jesus. It just isn't anymore. I can't stand what Christmas has turned into. And the really hardcore LGBT activists, I don't understand how they don't feel the same way about Pride. The way the corporations just whore that, you think they care? No, they're trying to sell you a $6 cup of coffee. But anyway, we obviously are in support of people to be able to, not be discriminated against by the government and who they can marry. Now, we don't think the government should issue marriage licenses to begin with. And by the way, a lot of people don't know. And I know a lot of people, probably even Mises people, and I'm probably now going to just show we're not monolithic again. There's a line in our platform that a lot of people don't like. And I'm going to raise my hand and confess that I'm the one who wrote it. And this isn't going to be exact words, but it'll be damn close because I wrote it. It's in the section about personal relationships where it says, as long as government continues its illegitimate practice of issuing marriage licenses, it must issue them to everyone who asks. Now, a lot of people don't like that language because they say it legitimizes marriage license. No, it doesn't. All it does is codify that the government can't discriminate. And as long as they are going to insert themselves into marriage, why are we only for couples? Why did we stop fighting for marriage rights the minute gay marriage became legal? Why? Why have we abandoned poly people? I'm not that. I live in as trad, but still, I don't, the party has dropped the ball on that. We really have. If the government is going to license, everyone who wants it should be able to get it. It's ridiculous. But anyway, I wrote that line. If you hate it, you can blame me. And I stand by every word of it. To me, it really did thread the needle on the should we be happy about the gay marriage decision or not. A lot of libertarians were unhappy about it because it said it expanded the government into an area it wasn't before. No, it was in that area before. It just stopped government discrimination. And I think that's the way you need to look at it. And believe it or not, it was Nick Sarwark who opened my eyes to that argument, because Nick would say, and don't get triggered because I know some people here don't like him, but he was right on this point, where he said, we don't believe the government should be we don't believe in government schools. Does that mean we should have opposed desegregation? Instead go, well, there shouldn't be schools to begin with. No, that would have been terrible. If the government is going to be providing education, which they shouldn't, but if they're going to, you can't say we're going to give better education to white kids. And that's how I came to the position I did on the whole marriage thing. Yeah, the government should be out of schools. But if they're in schools, they can't be discriminating. The answer is to get them out of schooling, and then parents can send their kids and educate their kids how they please. But anyway. So messaging, I know some people are upset that we're not very pride focused. I agree with the focus that we're taking. Yes, we should mention it, but no, it shouldn't be every other day. And we certainly got to be careful not to buy into some of the super, super progressive points of extra rights for marginalized people. No, everyone has the same rights. Now, it doesn't mean there aren't marginalized people, because they are. As I said, I got a bit of the wokeism in me. But they don't get extra rights just because of that. This whole idea of privilege drives me crazy. Yes, privilege exists, but rather than complaining that some people have privilege, you should be saying that everyone should have that privilege. You shouldn't be trying to take away privilege. You should be trying to grant that privilege. So rather than bringing everyone down, you should be trying to bring everyone up. And that's a difference in focus as far as I'm concerned. So rather than going, check your privilege, we should be going, hey, that person over there should have the same privilege as you. There's a difference. There's a different mindset there. And unfortunately, what's kind of gone on with the progressive talking points is the you're a white man thing. Well, if white men are privileged, everybody should be as privileged as white men, rather than bringing white men down. But I don't agree. I actually think white women are pretty damn privileged. I have experienced myself a lot of female privilege, and when I was younger, I'm older now, but when I was younger, pretty privilege. If you don't think there's pretty privilege, you're fooling yourself. There is. And I can say that I experienced female privilege in the very first race when I got in the LNC. In 2016, I was a nobody who came out of nowhere. I was only in the party for a year and a half, and I got on the LNC. And I do believe that I was qualified, and I believe that I ran a very good race. But you want to know why I know in my heart, and this feels like shit. I know in my heart why I got elected. Because I was a woman and I was running against an old white man. That's not fair to him. But beside that not being fair to him, it kind of takes away a little bit of my accomplishment, doesn't it? When I know in my heart that that was a big reason I was elected. I wanted to compete on the merits. I wish we could have been invisible people, that nobody knew what gender we were, what race we were, the whole thing, and we could have just competed on our merits. I believe I had more merit. But I know in my heart that I won because I was a woman running against an old white guy. And that feels like crap. And that wasn't fair. That wasn't fair to him, and it wasn't fair to me either. So, yes, that stuff exists. But the idea isn't to bring other people down that we're jealous of or envious of, because there's a lot of envy. It's to bring everyone up. The same thing I analogize where people go, oh, churches shouldn't be tax exempt. Yeah, they should. Everyone should be. The answer isn't to take away their tax exempt status. It's to make everybody tax exempt. Like, I don't care when somebody evades taxes. I applaud them. Now let's all do it. Okay. And the last, I think, controversy, y'all let me know if I forgot any, is 3 staff members resigned. That happens. You know, Mark Montoni said it so well. I don't remember what thread it was, where people were making a big deal out of it and like blaming, oh, they hated Mises or whatever. I don't know. Maybe they did. But the fact is, being on staff at the National Party, God bless them, because your bosses change every 2 years. I cannot imagine the stress. But anyway, turnover with a new LNC, particularly when the LNC changes, so drastically, particularly in the officers. And even though I was declared by the convention to be an incumbent, it still was kind of a weird situation. Like, I wasn't a typical incumbent. There was a whole drama with me. And then you have 3 brand new officers as part of a sweep, a huge turnover reformation of the party. I don't envy staff being in that position. They must have felt very insecure. So it's a really touchy, weird situation. But it's not unexpected. It just isn't. And if people want to blame the new LNC, okay, you're going to do that. We had turnover last time. It didn't happen right away, but people forget, and whether or not you liked Dan Fishman.
Objection, speculative.
Dan Fishman was executive director when Joe Bishop Henchman was elected. He was then, his contract was not renewed. And that's when Tyler was brought on. So Tyler hasn't been in that position a long time. Now, I loved Tyler. Very, very upset to see him go. He's a very good executive director. I liked all 3 staff members. But they need to do what they think is best for them. But for people to act like this is unusual, a surprise, a scandal, no, it isn't. It would have been a lot more if Tyler had been in that position for a long time, but he really hadn't been. It's only been a couple years. What was really shocking, people don't remember, it's right before Dan Fishman was hired when Wes Benedict left. A lot of people who are newer don't know that Wes Benedict was executive director, and boy, was he good. I miss Wes Benedict so badly. And he was in that position, I think, 8 years. Like, that was shocking. And when Wes decided to leave. And he's now doing his PAC thing. And from what I understand, I think the staff members that are leaving are going to just other liberty organizations. And that happens. If you want to make a big drama out of it, you can. Just realize you're using these people as weapons in a factional war, and you shouldn't use people that way. You just shouldn't. They deserve better. Don't use the 3 staff members that are departing as your weapons. They're human beings. And they were all very good staffers, in my opinion. So, I hope that they, all the success in the world and that they have other opportunities lined up. And I'm going to look on the bright side with this. We've got a brand new officer team. And now Angela gets to handpick people that are in line with her vision. And I think Tyler would have been perfect. But, he didn't think so. So he made the decision he needed to make for his own life. And now Angela's going to get to handpick an executive director. This is only going to be good. It's going to be good. It's going to be somebody right in line with her vision. There's not going to be friction. That's the way I'm choosing to look at it. You could look at it differently if you wish, but I'm asking people now at this point, there are always this faction, that faction, this person you wanted to be chair, that one. You win some, you lose some. There's always all of this. There was more turnover this time than usual. I will grant that. But there always is something. Oh, and Chuck's giving some history I didn't know. So Chuck says West was executive director, did not have his contract renewed, was replaced by Carla Howell, then was rehired as executive director with Carla, changed to political director and communications director. I loved Wes. Wes knows I'm like one of his biggest fans. And one thing under Wes's administration, and I'm not blaming Tyler at all here. No, whenever I say staff did something I didn't like, I don't blame the staff. Do you want to know who I blame? The LNC. If staff is misbehaving or doing something wrong, it's not staff's fault, it's the boss. The buck stops with the boss. So understanding what I'm going to say next, I am not blaming Tyler. Tyler can only do what the LNC tells him to do. Something that never happened when Wes was executive director, and it's, again, here's how I tend to be. When something good is going on, I give all praise to the staff. When something bad happens, I blame the LNC. But I actually think that's a good attitude. So when Wes was executive director, you never, and I mean never, saw staff engaging in factional internal politics like we have these past 2 years. It's not Tyler's fault. It's the LNC's fault. But that never happened. At least from 2016 up from that time when I was on it, that was a no-fly zone. Staff stayed out of internal politics, and we need to get back to that again. And if you all saw Angela asked for nominations for EPCC, I am not voting for anyone for EPCC unless they tell me that they have a commitment to work with staff to come up with a fair policy that keeps staff out of factional politics. That is one of my number one priorities. And it's going to be easier with the 3 new hires because they won't know anything differently. But we need to be fair to existing staff who has gotten used to things being a certain way. You can't just automatically expect people to turn on a dime. That's not fair. That's not the way you treat human resources. So that's why I insisted that the EPCC has to work with current staff to come up with something that everyone can live with. Matt, is internal factionalism worse now than before? Define before. Immediately before? Yeah. 2006 before? No. Chuck Moulton can tell you something about what happened in 2006, and I don't mean that like in any kind of insulting way. People act like this big upheaval has never happened before. Go back and read party history about the crane machine and the coctopus and all of that. There's nothing new under the sun. It's cyclical. Who was it that... And I like this. I think it was Jeff Neal, wasn't it? We had an LNC chair who purposely irritated Starchild every opportunity he could by calling him Mr. Starchild. Like, that's how petty crap got. So at meetings, it would be, oh yeah, the Harry Brown Hornberger thing. Dr. Lark still hasn't gotten over that. To me, the statute of limitations has expired, people. That's over 20 years ago. Let it go. But they haven't. Yes, there's nothing new. It's cyclical. It's cyclical. But 2006, our entire platform was deleted. You guys are upset about the abortion plank. The entire platform, except for like 4 or 5 planks, was deleted. They tried to get rid of the pledge. They didn't succeed with the pledge. Did succeed with the platform. It happens. And you want to know why it happened? Because the people who opposed it didn't show up. I'm sorry, Nick Sarwark is right there. The party belongs to who shows up. And the radicals didn't show up in 2006. Shame on them. And the Reform Caucus did. Good on them. And that was a brilliant piece of organization. Just like the Mises Caucus, this past convention was a brilliant piece of organization. But it's cyclical. It's not the first time. It won't be the last time. So what that led into is we have some people now on Facebook, and unfortunately some of them are former LNC members, who haven't yet dealt with the fact that they were terrible in that particular role. They're not terrible people. They were terrible in that particular role, in my opinion. Not everyone agrees. But instead of like stepping back and doing some self-reflection as to why the takeover happened and the people who took over really aren't their biggest fans, instead of stepping back and doing some self-reflection, like, maybe I did screw up. They're just sniping at the current LNC. And I know some people are going to go, oh, you have no self-awareness. You've done no self. I've done a lot of self-reflection, baby. I've done a lot of it on this show. And anyone who knows me well, and particularly people I've let get super close to me, know that I've grown a lot since September 2021. That doesn't mean I think my removal was right. But it also doesn't mean that I think I did everything right, because I didn't. Fundamentally, I agree with my actions. I would have gone about things in a different way, and I would now, because adversity has matured me. It has grown me. It has made me stronger. But unfortunately, what I'm seeing from some of the former LNC members is they haven't grown. They haven't stepped back and go, you know, why did most of the party who showed up at convention hate me? And why did they love her? We hated her. Like, no self-reflection on that. Like, none. I'm sorry. You need to do some self-reflection and maybe take some time off of sniping who the delegates elected. Now, listen, it comes with the job. You can do that if you want to. I've always said, elected leaders, you're going to hear things you don't like. But I am asking you guys to do some self-reflection. Really, is it the best thing for the party to be comparing minutes getting amended to 1984? Really? Is it the best use for former LNC members to be constantly questioning the mental health of people on the current LNC? Is it really? Maybe you need to step back and wonder why so many people didn't like you and be more likable. Honestly, I'm not saying this to dig at you. I'm saying a smart, politically savvy person would go, holy crap. Holy crap. Enough people, enough libertarians were able to organize in one place and get nearly 70% of the vote. And those people hated me. That should make you cause some self-reflection. And the person I drove out of the LNC, my God, they loved her. That should cause some self-reflection, people. The LNC never came to grips with the person in their own ranks that they hated the most, the membership loved the most. You're disconnected, and it's not really about me. It could have been anybody, because I'm not that special. I just happened to be the flashpoint. And I do think I was the flashpoint. I don't think the Mises Caucus takeover would have been as successful nationally if I wasn't removed. I could be deluding myself. I could be having a big head. You guys can keep me humble. I'd love to hear if you... But there's critical moments in the progression of history that are flashpoints. And the people that happen to be at those flashpoints, there's nothing special about them. It's just it's a perfect storm. And it could have been anybody. And I happen to be at the center of this perfect storm. And the removal of me was the straw that broke the camel's back. And that, I think, is what made... There were a lot of things that made the Mises Caucus eventual success inevitable, and I've put that back to Nick starting to attack Tom Woods and Jeff Deist and all that. But the thing that made it inevitable for this convention was my removal. They made a martyr out of me. And as Justin O'Donnell said, Karen Ann Harlos was a great secretary, but she's an even better martyr. That could be the theme of the Reno reset. I do think that made it inevitable. And they need to do some self-reflection. So as some of these are congregating on a certain discussion list, we all know which one, I don't need to say it. There's one that's a cesspool that most people will not participate in. It's the same 10 people just in a circle jerk of how much they hate the Mises Caucus, and there's so little self-reflection there. That's why I revived the LNC membership connection group and said, Daniel, I'm not going to say anything, and you take that for whatever you'd like. Everyone knows what it is. So that's why I revived the... And there's a place for groups like that. Sometimes you got to just go shit talk. But when that's all you're doing, there could be a problem. Or maybe the LNC's just terrible. It could be. This one's only been in power for 2 weeks, so I don't think it's time for us to be that terrible. I think you're just really ass mad about not winning. And you have to ask yourself... that is that best for the party, or you really just care about yourself? Because I don't think these people that are acting that way are acting at all in the best interest of the party. I think, like the expression goes, they're feeding their bellies and really need to step back. And as I said, I made a video when Nick started going off the rails, when I said the LP needs to check itself. Oh my God, that video has turned out to be prophetic. I forgot about that video. If you want to see a video that just started to decline, there's a video I did, search for it. It's entitled, "The LP Needs to Check Itself Before It Wrecks Itself." And you'll see, man, a lot of stuff I said then was prophetic, I think. And this was before the Mises Caucus exists, or maybe they were just forming. And it was all about Nick going after the Covington kid. If you remember that, that's what that video was about. When Covington happened, was the Mises Caucus formed, or were they just forming then? This was a while ago. And I agree with JJ when he said, my removal, Delaware, then Massachusetts. And my removal, you might as well put as synonymous with New Hampshire, because it's all tied up. Everyone knows I was removed because of New Hampshire. Everyone knows that. Even the people who did it, they know that. Let's stop fooling ourselves, please. You want to know who did the best brief on that? Which one day maybe we'll read it again. And I didn't even know him very well then, was Todd Hagopian. Todd I obviously got to know pretty well when we were on an officer slate for Mises. But I didn't know Todd very well then. And he wrote one of the best briefs in my case. Like, oh, so we're to believe this timing and then this and this, but she wasn't removed as a whistleblower. Okay. And da-da-da-da-da. But she wasn't removed as a whistleblower. Okay. I mean, he laid it out so well. If you guys for a while haven't looked at that, he really, really did a great job. So on to the LNC membership thing. Yeah, the Libertarian Party discussion group. I know you guys are really trying to keep that not be a cesspool. The only reason LNC member discuss, I think we're going to be successful, is because the topics are limited. It's a lot easier to control the tone when the topics are so limited. So, you know, our rules are really simple. It was, what are the rules if I could go off the top of my the titles, just the titles underneath it. Don't be a dick. We already know you have a podcast. We don't care what caucus you love or hate. And keep it about national. I think that's it. There might be one other rule. And that's it. So making that it's about the LNC or national and saying you're going to keep caucuses out of it, that solves most of the problem right then. It really does. Oh, yeah, Matt, they are not. Well, Matt, you haven't seen the posts I've removed. They're learning their lesson because we're not banning anybody. Unless somebody like spams the group and the moderators can't keep up, no one is getting banned from this group. They'll just have their posts removed. If they don't follow the rules, they'll have their post removed. We give a reason for every post removal. And the number one reason for post removal is we don't care what caucus you love or hate. If you want to criticize the LNC, it's perfectly allowed in there. Just do it politely. There's a guy who does it very well. I'm losing his name. Is a guy who basically said, you guys suck and I'm not going to give you money anymore. But he said it in just such a just professional way. Whatever. He's never going to be censored. Because you're allowed to say you think the LNC sucks in there. But the minute you go, and it's because of the Mises guy. Listen, if you want to say the LNC sucks, do it on their own merits. Don't be dragging caucuses into it. I'll never silence criticism. As long as it's just done in a way that isn't just flame-throwing. I don't care. Say you hate the new LNC and you're not giving them any more money. Fair. We need to hear from that. We need to hear from people who think that. But I've deleted quite a few posts. And Dustin, I think, has as well. Oh yeah. And what was I remember the fifth rule. The fifth rule was if you disagree with a moderating decision, look at the admin list and find an LNC member you like to complain to. And if you can't find one you like, pick the one you hate the least. So I think I've covered the 2 weeks. And I haven't done hardly any grifting. Oh my God. Well, I'm not going to do that this show because I don't want to give the people in the group, which shall not be named, more reasons to complain. Though I did say at the first LNC meeting, you all in this room, y'all know I have a monetized YouTube channel, right? Y'all know I was elected with everyone knowing I have a monetized YouTube channel, right? But anyway, so I plan to be doing shows like this probably every 2 weeks, maybe every week, so it's not 2 hours long, just to keep you guys up to date and to give an avenue for you to give feedback on stuff. And, yep, go to LNC member to discuss. Really happy to have the interaction. It keeps the LNC out of an echo chamber, which was a big problem last term. And it's very easy to happen But, you know, in conclusion, I'll say I am thrilled to death with the way we're working together. And it's not that we're agreeing on everything. We don't. And that's impossible to expect. But as long as you can disagree agreeably, things are good. And so far, things are going great. Absolutely great. So, Matt. All right, everyone. I'm going to take off. I know my Patreon screen that's going to come up is a little outdated. I did get a new patron that I need to put onto the screen. I am going to do a little grifting at the end here. Along the bottom is my Patreon. If you like the content I produce, please consider becoming a Patreon. I did have a drop in June. And the reason is a lot of people who really couldn't afford it at the time were supporting me on Patreon because they were supporting my re-election campaign. And now that I've accomplished that goal, they just really can't afford to keep it up. And I am so grateful for the amount of time that they were able to do that. And some people had said that that now that they like the new LNC, they want to direct some of their discretionary income away from YouTube channels and to the party. And God bless you. So I did have a little bit of a drop. You know, my goal eventually is to work in the real world part-time and do libertarian activism I'd love to do libertarian activism full-time, but that's just very few people can accomplish that. So, and I still am looking for a real world job. So if you like my content and you can afford it, only if you can afford it, please do consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. I truly, truly appreciate it. So here's my screen that needs to be updated with one new name. Yeah, I will see you guys. Oh, shit. You know me, whenever I say I'm wrapping up, it means there's another 30 minutes. But I am wrapping up, and there won't be another 30 minutes. There will not be shows Tuesday and Wednesday. Wayne, shut the door. Wayne has been very neglected during this period of time. God bless him. He's a saint. I'm not the easiest person to live with. Big surprise. And we're going camping Tuesday and Wednesday. And tomorrow, there's an LPCO board meeting. So there's probably not going to be shows Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. There might be. If there's a cell connection where we're camping, because we're not going up to the high country, because we want to have a campfire, and there's a lot of wildfires in Colorado. A lot of people don't know that. So we found areas where there was enough moisture that we're allowed to have a campfire. If there's a cell connection, I'll do a show from the campground. But if not, I'm out of town, and there's a LPCO board meeting tomorrow night. So you might not hear from me for the next 3 days. Maybe I'll do a stream in the afternoon on Monday to make up for it. But otherwise, I'll be seeing you guys back. But him and I need a vacation. We need a couple days away. So we got the camper here. We just resupplied it. The dogs are looking forward to it. So probably won't be around Tuesday or Wednesday. So that is it now. I hope you all have an awesome night. Bye-bye. Oh, my closing screen didn't come up, and I'm just sitting here. What happened to my closing screen? I wanted to hear the people acting like they're politicians. Hold on. What happened to my choose file? Hold on. You guys, I'm glad I wasn't picking my nose or anything. That would have been terrible. Where's my outro? Here we go. All right, now bye.
You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians, or choose to be an accountant because it's safe